Hey, yo, what up, everyone? And welcome back to the Made Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Austin Smith. And as you can see, I'm joined by my good brother, Eric Hampford, who is our director of scouting here at Made Hoops. And he pretty much wears a bunch of other hats, too. I'm pretty sure he does a lot more than this, just that. But as always, man, it's good to be on board with you today, my friend. How you feeling?
It's always good to be here, my guy. Feeling good. Weather's nice. Summer's finally here. We closed out the spring this past weekend in multiple locations between our spring championships in Memphis and our West Coast Middle School Academy, which was our debut camp out on the West Coast. So I'm feeling good right now.
I love it. I like the change of scenery you got going on, man. The weather's good outside. I like it.
Birds are chirping. Yeah, life is good right now.
I dig it. I dig it. Well, you mentioned two big important events that we've had recently, man, here at May Hoops. And you mentioned the spring, obviously, championships, and then also you mentioned the West Coast MSA camp. But let's talk about the spring circuit a little bit for a second, because again, it's getting down to the wire, and this event was a big one. A lot of people went home with some championships. Players competed. They stepped up to the plate. And I know when my phone starts buzzing about, who won this? Who was the best player here? I know it's a pretty big deal in summertime with us at Made. So talk to us a little bit about just some takeaways from that spring circuit championship and everything that went down.
Yeah, I mean, the spring championships, as predicted, it was a wild time, very competitive. There were some upsets along the way. I mean, champions were crowned in our 8th grade division. We had All Ohio Edmund Sumner, and they also won our 7th grade division as well. In 8th grade green, we had Blueprint Elite out of Oklahoma. And then 6th grade, we actually had Team Felton, which is coached by Ray Felton. So those were a few of our teams. And honestly, those guys all had very good seasons leading into championship weekend. So it wasn't a huge surprise that they won championships. But as we all know, with that level of competition, it ain't easy to do.
Right. You mentioned something that was key, too. You mentioned how those teams had productive seasons leading up to the championship. Eric, what have you seen be a consistent, I guess you can say, a consistent leading up to or consistent point that comes across those teams who do well during the other stops and ultimately get to the summer championships and spring circuit championship and do well? What do you think is a consistency amongst those programs?
I think it's the continuity, teams that have been together for a while.
Okay.
I think that's one major aspect of it. You don't tend to see guys who plug and play different kids, no matter how talented. That doesn't work at the highest levels, right? And that's a trickle down all the way from EYBL 17U down to this age group. The level of competition is just too high. You have to have guys who know their roles, play their roles. Now, obviously, they all have to be talented in their own right, because there's just no way you're going to win without that. But I think the coaches who win do a good job of identifying kids that fit what they want to do. These guys run legitimate sets, even at these middle school levels. It's not just you're out there free playing, right? So that's a huge part. And I think sometimes you see some carryover from our winter circuits where some of these teams are really battle tested. They go through the winter playing and then they kind of gel and they're ready to compete and do the same thing at the spring level or at the spring time session. So I think some of it is these coaches know what they're getting into and they don't take it lightly and they prepare accordingly for that.
Yeah, you have to. And what's another good point about that too, just to be able to have a good season leading up to that. The same way, I think those same principles and those same concepts apply when you have a team, like you mentioned, that won an 8th grade division and a 7th grade division. And we talked about programs before who kind of won both levels in different circuit stops. What's your take on that, along the same lines of continuity and things of that nature, to win it at different levels for the same organization?
I think it just speaks to what a program should be, right? Like, it's when you see teams that it's not a one-off, right? You're looking for programs that sustain excellence, they maintain, and then they sustain. That's a huge thing, right? And if you have a 6th grade or a 5th grade group and they're looking up at the elder statesmen of their teams, they see 8th grade teams winning, they see 7th grade teams winning, 6th grade teams winning. The expectation for them is then to win themselves, right? Like that's what they're assuming they're going to do. And I know we talk about teams like Team Takeover a lot, but it really is a standard of excellence that it's an expectation for them. If they don't win, they feel like failures because everybody before them has won. So
it's big time.
When you can create that type of environment in your program, not only are you going to thrive as a program, but individually kids are going to thrive because they are going to battle with one another. They're going to expect to get better, and they're going to want to see the best of the best because they're going to believe that they always are the best.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that translates, like you said, that translates on all levels. And you see, when you had a level of consistency, the results and the standards continue to be the same. So appreciate your insight on that. Yeah, I know I'm always trying to figure out what makes the best of the best grade. And again, like I told you, I had people that asked me, like, who are some of the better teams that have played this season and what makes them good. And I kind of referred along the same lines as the thing you mentioned. So really good stuff. All right, brother, let's talk about it. West Coast MSA camp, man. I know it was a good one. I saw all the content on social media. Tell us about that camp. And again, you mentioned before, this was year one for the West Coast camp. So from your perspective, how was that event in totality, man? Talk to us, E.
I really enjoyed it. Honestly, it was, we know that the East Coast camp was crazy and it's wild. I mean, you're talking a packed house, 300 plus kids, zooming around the gym between strength and conditioning stations, off court classroom learnings, on the court playing. The level of talent is high at every grade level. I mean, it's an experience unto itself. West Coast, it was about half the size, so it was a way more intimate setting, which I really enjoyed because it gave you a chance to really dig in and watch these kids, and it gave the kids themselves a chance to really see what we do and to really take away some things and learn from some of the guys that we have, right? Our coaching staff is always, A1, top of the line. Corey Alexander does a phenomenal job. He's a guy who's played at the highest levels. I mean, he was a McDonald's All-American in high school, had an incredible career at the University of Virginia, played in the league for X years. Then you have guys like Jason Richardson coming in and, talking to the kids on the lunch break of day one. I mean, there's different factors of camp where it's giving them the opportunity to reach out and touch greatness and see what it's actually going to take to get to the levels that they aspire to get to. And on top of that, I mean, we had some super talented kids in the gym.
Let's go through some of the list of those players, man. I mean, yeah, prospects at all levels. On day one, possibly even day two, like, who caught your eye? Like the moment you started getting into the gameplay, maybe even some of the drill stations, who caught your attention early?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of kids I was familiar with coming into it, kids who've played in our circuit this winter, kids who I've come across in my scouting travels, but you're seeing growth in their game from the last time I've seen them, right? So like one perfect example is a kid like Jackson Richardson, who is the son of Jason Richardson. Kid who up until the winter, he had a few injuries, was rounding back in a playing shape, could finish, is athletic, blocks a lot of shots, but like the steps he's taken athletically since even just the winter has been really impressive to see. I mean, this kid's out here trying to windmill on the break as an 8th grader. Like you're starting to see some of dad's DNA really starting to kick in for him. Yeah, like that's the type of growth that you see in like a 6 to 8 month period for some of these kids, where just from the beginning of their 8th grade year to the end of their 8th grade year, they're improving by leaps and bounds. A new face that came across my radar, Taj Ariza, son of Trevor Ariza. So obviously another kid with bloodlines and genetics, about 6'5", smooth wing. Brandon Martinson, 6'7", skilled forward, headed to Mater Dei High School in Los Angeles. I mean, the list goes on and on. Brandon Mccoy Jr., who was a star for our Why Not Favorites team this past winter on the West Coast, plays for Darrell Wright, who is a friend of the podcast. Brandon's gotten a lot more athletic. He had a really good camp. Tyron Stokes, who, is probably a top 3 kid in the country in the class, 6'6", 6'7", does everything you could really ask him to do on the court. I mean, he was dominant from start to finish, probably the most dominant kid in the gym. Anthony Felici is a guard that I really like, who has gotten really good over the past, 6 to 9 months, about 6'4", athletic. I think he has a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan, big feet. Going to be playing at Orem High School in Utah. Expect his name to really start to pop as he heads to the high school level. Jamin Sondrup, a 6'8" big man from Utah, was another 8th grade standout. Ty Coleman from Vegas, smooth scoring guard. Cottrell Harmon, another 6'4" wing. I mean, incredibly smooth athlete. Next up in Seattle. Really talented kid. I mean, again, I could go through. I feel bad, like, if I don't talk about every kid who was in the top 20, but that's really what it was. I mean, we had such a strong group of 8th graders. It was really impressive for year one, and I got to give, kudos to Rob Noonan. Our boy got it done on the West Coast just like he did on the East Coast. I think it's really going to set the stage. And then in 7th and 6th grade, we had a few kids who really did their thing too.
Yeah. No, let me ask you this. And having the 6th graders there as well, have you seen the fact that they're in the same kind of setting or in the same environment as the 7th and 8th graders? Does that up their play and up their standards a bit when they're at these camps?
I think what it does, the West layout was a little bit different, where it was really intimate, where you had 2 sessions per day, where the 8th graders came in to start the day, Saturday and Sunday, and then the 7th and 6th played together in the session after them. But there was some crossover between both sessions, where some of those young kids were coming in and watching, and especially when the All-Star game was wrapping up on day 2, all those 7th and 6th graders who were coming in for their session wanted to see that top 20 game. They were all crowded around the court. It does make them level up, and I think it really shows them, hey, this could be me in a year or 2 years, or this should be me. This is going to be me. This is how I can get there. Or here's what I need to do to get there. Oh man, I have a lot of work to get there, right? When you're seeing some of these kids on the court, and it's like the size of them in the 8th grade and the gifts they have, it may seem like a challenge to get there for some of them, but some of these 7th and 6th graders, man, it's not even that they're in awe. Some of them, it's a business approach. Like, okay, how do I get there? I want to be next.
Man, that's good stuff. And I think we always talk about the next, I don't want to say next man up, but like the next generation of prospects and, the next group of years players that are younger before getting ready to step into their role. I've always thought that's pretty cool in the camp setting, because again, you get to see, oh, that player's a year older. Like maybe in college in a few years, I'll have to guard him. Maybe in high school, I'll have to play against him, because again, the varsity level, you got players at all levels. So,
or some of them will be playing together in high school, right? Where it's like a lot of these kids are from the same areas. It's like if they're going to a big time basketball school in that city, hey, you're going to be waiting your turn and playing behind a kid who's a year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you. So there's definitely some crossover there.
Love it. Yeah, I want to ask you a quick question and pivot for a second. Let's talk about Corey Alexander and its impact that he's really had as a director here with us in regards to our camps. What are some of the things that players are learning? We talk about the offensive side of the game, the defensive side of the game, dribble, passing, shooting, but with your ear always around, what have you seen some of these kids really learn as they go through the days of camp and they develop their games?
I think they're starting to learn what hard work really is and what it's going to take to get to the next level, right? Like, a lot of these guys are big fish in small ponds from a standpoint of they are so athletically gifted, and the game comes so easy to so many of them that they're starting to understand, and they're hearing from guys like Corey Alexander, who's played in the league, Jason Richardson, who's played in the league. The physical gifts aren't what's going to get you there. Or I should say, sometimes if you are elite of the elite, it will get you there, but it won't keep you there, right? And we'll say highest of the high examples, right? If you get drafted, that's incredible, right? But that's just the start. You have to keep your spot in the league at that point, right? Like, Jason Richardson sustained a career in the NBA. He was looked at as, just a leaper, just a dunker. It's like, he was so much more than that. And the proof is in the pudding. He was able to stay in the league for 10 plus years because of that, right? And you probably saw that viral clip that Brad Beal had a year ago with his AAU program, right?
Yeah.
And it was look, you guys are my guys. I love you guys. You play for the program, but I'll tell you one thing, you're never going to take my job. I'm never letting any one of y'all take my job. And I think that's what guys like Corey and Jason and some of our other people, Book Richardson, we have so many guys who've done this at the highest levels. It's those physical gifts can only take you so far. You have to learn what hard work is. You have to learn what nutrition is. You have to learn how to, be a brand and come across professionally, stay out of trouble. I mean, the on-court talent is only one piece of the puzzle if you're really trying to get to the highest level. So, and I think also just the good on good environment of our camp shows some of these guys that too, right? Like, man, like there's a bunch of dudes out here other than just me.
Yeah.
So I think there's just an environment that's created at the camps that really wakes some of these guys up to what this process and this marathon is going to be.
Sure. What gets you there won't keep you there. I love that phrase. I'm gonna have to add that one to my bag, brother. We need to use that for sure. Well, look, again, man, like you mentioned, 2 big time events, spring circuit championships, West Coast MSA camp. Big time for us here at Made Hoops. What do we have to look forward to for the remainder of the summer, E? I'm gonna let you kind of give us a slight sneak peek, man. What we got cooking?
We got our 8th grade finale coming up in July, which best of the best, man. Like West Coast circuit, East Coast circuit, spring circuit, they all want to get at each other. You see it on the DMs, you see it on the IG comments. You had Matt Barnes with G1 Elite saying, we want team takeover. Every grade, they all want to play against each other. They want to see what the best of the best on the other side of the country looks like. So for 8th grade, we provide that national championship atmosphere where these teams are going to get at each other. And we have a ton of these guys coming from literally Seattle Rotary to Night Riders Elite in Miami to you play in Canada to, Drive Nation in Dallas. I mean, you're talking everywhere and in between. We're going to have these guys battling it up. And that's honestly my favorite event of the year because it's a celebration of basketball, right? Nike Peach Jam's right down the street. It's a who's who. A lot of these NBA players who have programs are in the mix in the gym. You got college coaches coming in the gym, coming in to watch some of these 8th graders and actually giving some offers out to some of our really elite 8th graders. So it's a turning of the page where these guys are going from middle school to high school. And that's really the next step of the journey. And that's one thing that we really try to preach to these guys is, hey, you're graduating middle school, man. You were the top dog this year, but now you're back at the bottom of the totem pole. So we have the 8th grade finale in July. And then we have several more camps coming up in the fall. And it's just, another weekend, another big time event for us. I would say closing out a few guys who were really impressive to me additionally at our West Coast Academy, Jaden Bales, 6'1" scoring guard from San Diego, heading to St. Aug's, had a really big camp. Not many people knew about Jaden prior to this weekend. We also had a kid, Julian Plaza, point guard from Alabama, who made the trip out to Las Vegas, turned a ton of heads. And I love when kids show up who don't really have that rep. And all of a sudden, everybody in the gym's like, oh, who's this kid? And you hear their teammates even saying that too. In the 7th grade division, we had Marty Barnes from South Florida, really killed the competition. David Lund from Albuquerque, New Mexico was stellar. He's from a basketball playing family. Both of his parents played at the University of Delaware. So, the genetics are there. Really hardworking, player with a bright future. And then we also had a 6'10" 7th grader, Adrian Isaac Porras, who's got a chance to be very good. Obviously, with that type of size, that young, the future is going to be bright regardless. But even just in several months, he's come a long way. So those were a few guys in our 7th grade division that really played well. Heaven Chia from the Rose City Rebels, talented guard. He really did his thing in 6th grade. And so did JJ Satai Greer, who's been a star in our West Coast League all winter. He kind of continued to back up his rep as well. So, man, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we had a ton of talent.
You're right about it. And I love too, the consistency. Like these kids get to play against a lot of this top talent year round. So when they do get to a camp setting, I know this kid, I know what he does. Maybe he's gotten a little bit better. I got to prepare, but I prepare better too. So the competition raises its standard as well. So that's dope. It really is, man. And these kids continue to get better and better, and they continue to grow. And our platform at Made Hoops is giving them an opportunity to grow, like using the West Coast MSA camp, where they get to learn, compete, and advance their game. So big kudos to all those guys you mentioned, everyone that came out as well. Thanks for making the first inaugural West Coast camp a big one that we will remember and continue to set the bar high for in years to come. So,
And if I didn't mention on the podcast, we're obviously going to keep the content rolling from these past weekends, where odds are you'll see some player spotlights on some other kids who did their thing. So stay posted to our IG and TikTok accounts. We'll be putting a lot of content out like we always do.
Simple and plain, at Made Hoops. You heard them. IG, TikTok. I will tell you this, upon just being an Instagram user and following Made Hoops myself, there's content posted every day. All right. So you're not following, you'll be missing out. So do so. Turn notifications on. Don't miss anything, because like he said, the story write-ups, the highlights, and all that stuff is coming soon. Do not miss a beat. I appreciate you, bro. I think priority number one should be to make sure that you, Rob, Chad, and everybody else who's going to help the 8th grade finale be great has an ample supply of Red Bull, body armor with caffeine, something, bro. I mean,
it's 5 days, man. It's a different beast. I'll say that. Like, we're used to working weekends, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
It hits different when you're there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. By the time you get to that last leg of the race, a lot of us are running on E, but the true hoop junkies, man, I love it, man. I get to work in basketball every day of my life. I'm blessed. It's not always easy, but nobody got it better than me, man.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Being around the game we love is truly dope for sure. I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with me again on this episode and diving into the Spring Circuit Championships and the West Coast MSA camp. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Made Hoops podcast. Like he mentioned before, make sure you're following us on TikTok and on Instagram at Made Hoops. Got a bunch of content and stuff coming your way. And we look forward to seeing y'all again soon on our next episode. 8th grade finale is coming in July. You know how it is when it gets down there in Augusta, Georgia. So we can't wait to see you all there. Thanks for tapping in, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on the next episode of the Made Hoops podcast.